10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 244. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 244 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Hope you are all doing well out there and ready to dive into a brand new assignment this week. So this week we're going to continue our series on the great Charlie Parker by taking a look at another aspect of his playing. And this is really my favorite aspect of his playing and one that I will feel is going to be most valuable to you. But before we jump into the show, let me thank a few new patrons. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, this is a listener-supported show. And the way that our listeners support us is through the platform Patreon, where you can support your creators that you love directly. You do get some awesome rewards, including a PDF and an audio example recording of every single episode. And we have those for the low price of either $3 or $5 a month. So if you want to check that out, go to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, go over and get signed up, and you will get instant access to all those materials. So thank you to two new $3 patrons. Thank you to Sarah and Steve. And thank you to our new $5 patron. Thank you to John. Thank you guys so much. We've got over 300 people, approaching 350 people over there that are supporting the show, and we would love to welcome you on board. Thanks to everybody that keeps this show alive. All right, so let's jump into today's episode. So last week, we took a look at some chromaticism and the way that that chromaticism led from chord to chord. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a texture element of Charlie Parker's soloing. And I truly think this is one of the things that makes his playing so effective. One of the most effective things that he does is he varies his texture. So what I notice when I'm studying the solos of Charlie Parker is that if I see a scale-based line, meaning that he's basically moving in like half steps and whole steps, he's going to contrast that by outlining an arpeggio. So basically playing intervals that are a third or wider. And this is really cool because it allows him to change directions really quickly. It allows him to change the register that he's playing in on the saxophone, and it really lends this incredible amount of excitement to his solos where he's bouncing from high notes to low notes, and then you hear this really beautiful scale segment, and then he continues bouncing around. He uses a lot of intervals of thirds and sixths when he's jumping around, and we're going to take a look at 3 examples where he does this to a T. These examples are really, really great when it comes to studying something that will get some of these aspects into your playing. So let's jump right into the first example. I blabbed on for way too long this last week, so we're going to try to keep things a little bit shorter and jump into the analysis. All right, so if you have your PDF, this is the time to put it in front of you and follow along with exactly what I'm talking about. So let's start by hearing the line really, really slowly, and then we will talk about the various aspects of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let's start with what progression this is over. So basically what happens is this is part of a blues, and we're playing the 1 chord in the key of concert B flat. Then we're going to the 4 chord for a measure, and then we're doing a 1, 6, 2 to end the line. All right. So what I've done in your PDF is I have color-coded the different aspects of his playing. So color-coded in blue are the scale segments, the more horizontal playing, and then color-coded in red are the more vertical aspects of his playing, where he's covering intervals that are larger than a third. That's kind of the cutoff that I used. Now you will notice when he's playing vertically, he does on occasion use a half step or a whole step, but he only uses that to pivot directions, and then he continues using his wider intervals. So if you get a little bit confused by that, like there is a half step in this first line that I've color coded in red, but notice how he's using it to pivot to a different direction. All right. So if we look at the first part of the line, the first measure is all scale based. It's all very horizontal. He's coming up the scale, then he's coming back down the scale. Into the second measure, he's continuing his scale segment stuff. And then on the and of 2 in the second measure, he starts branching out into this more vertical style of playing. And he does this all the way until the end of beat 3 in the third measure, and then he ends it with a little chromatic line. And that chromatic line leads to the last note that he plays in this example, which is the 9th of the 2 chord. So what I want you to notice when we listen to this again is how he balances it. He goes back and forth between horizontal to vertical, back to horizontal. And notice how nice and exciting it sounds when he makes that transition from using all whole steps and half steps to using those wider intervals, those third or higher intervals. So let's check out the line 3 times, slow, medium, and fast, and really, really listen for the difference between the horizontal and the vertical playing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now what you can hear is the faster it goes, the more exciting it is, right? And that's kind of the case with Charlie Parker because he did play at a lot of fast tempos. So this stuff, when we study it, we have to realize the context and eventually work it up to that tempo that he was playing it at. And that's where we really get kind of the full effect of what he's doing. All right, let's jump on to line number 2. This one is over a very familiar chord progression. This is just 2, 5, 1, 6, 4-bar chord progression, 1 chord per bar. Let's check this one out really slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Such a great line. I love the texture of that. This is where it really starts to be very effective. So if we look at the first measure, we start with 3 beats of horizontal motion. Then on beat 4 of the first measure, he's jumping into his more vertical playing. And then we see that last for just over a measure. He uses that vertical playing all the way until beat 2 of measure 3, and on that beat he goes back into his scale-based playing, plays 3 beats of that all the way until beat 2 of measure 4, and then he does something really interesting, which I think is genius. He interjects with just a little bit of that vertical playing, only a beat and a half, only 3 notes, and then he ends the line with another scale-based idea. Now, this just shows you the real genius of Charlie Parker, where he's worked on this stuff so much that he can interject with these little bits of texture on the fly. He can kind of make the measure into kind of a puzzle between horizontal and vertical playing. So let's check this one out. Again, look at the PDF and you'll notice the color coding is going to sort of guide you through where he's using all of these different techniques. All right, so here's slow, medium, and fast for line number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. love that line. Really, really like that. And in the last measure, I really dig the way he just flips back and forth between them 2 times in the course of one measure. All right, so let's go on to line number 3. This one's my favorite of the whole episode because he also starts to incorporate some rhythmic variety, some triplets. He strays from just the eighth notes into a little bit more of a triplet feel. So this one again is over a 2-5-1-6 in the key of concert B flat. Let's check it out slowly first. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so let's take a closer look at this one. So we see him start with a little scale segment for the first beat. And then as soon as he gets to beat 2, he starts outlining with a triplet, a major triad based off of the third of the 2 chord. And he does this a lot when he uses triplets. In fact, we're going to see it again later in this line. But then immediately on beat 3, he goes to this really cool chromatic line going down. Then when we get to measure 2, he spends all of measure 2 outlining these arpeggios. And something to think about is what arpeggios is he outlining, right? That would be a way to go a little bit deeper than just looking at the texture. It's looking at the texture along with doing a little bit of harmonic analysis. So then in beat 3, we see another triplet. And again, he's outlining on beat 2, he's outlining a minor triad based off of the third over this major chord. Follows that up in the second half of the measure with another scale segment, continues that scalar playing into the first half of the last measure, and then we get that really exciting jump at the very end of the line where he's starting to use these wide intervals again. And the combination of the rhythmic interest along with the intervallic interest really makes this line stand out to me as being kind of the most exciting one that we've looked at this episode. And you're going to notice there's a lot of red and blue kind of one after another in this particular line. So let's check this one out at the 3 tempos and see what you think about it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, three, four. I just love that line. That one's going to be stuck in my head all day, and that's a really good thing. All right, so let's get to your assignment for the week. So what I want you to do is I want you to take that 2-5-1-6 progression, and I would like you to write 3 lines that incorporate some of these things that we've talked about today. So you could start by doing it in a really straightforward manner. You can say, I'm going to play 2 beats of horizontal playing and then 2 beats of vertical playing. Or you could even think, all right, I'm going to do 1 measure of horizontal playing, 1 measure of vertical playing, and kind of go back and forth between those 2 things. Or when you start to get more advanced with this stuff, you could try to do what Charlie Parker does, where he kind of mixes everything together into this beautiful mishmash of horizontal and vertical, where the listener kind of never really knows where you're going to go. And they really pay attention to your playing, because if your playing is compelling and you can't put your finger on it, you always want to hear what's next. So that's what I would like to hear. And after you write those, please post yourself playing them and maybe post like a screenshot of what you came up with in the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Community Facebook group. Really excited to see what you guys come up with. And that's also an accountability thing, right? If you plan on posting them, you have to actually do these assignments, which is obviously going to get you further than just listening to the episode and not really doing anything about it. So post those. I really look forward to hearing them from you guys. Remember, if you want to get the PDF and see the color coding and really dive into these lines, go to 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, and $3 a month gets you access to all of those sheets in every key. All right, we will see you next week. I hope you are all doing well out there, staying safe, staying healthy, and really look forward to coming back with part 3 of this series. Have a good one, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.